All right, so I wanted to get into the topic of the sustainability of the whole foods plant-based diet, especially if you're looking at it from the concept of a low-fat diet. There are so many different versions of a whole foods plant-based diet that's low in fat, and some people have a hard time sticking with it. And here are some of the ones that I've seen or encountered or even tried myself. So there's the SOS-free diet. That is sugar, oil, and salt-free diet. So its focus is being whole foods mainly. And then you've got things like potatoes only. You've got the people who do vegetables for breakfast. And if you're one of those people, you might have heard of the term sequencing your food. So that's people that would start with salads, then steam vegetables, and then they get into their starch. And then there are the 50-50 plates. So people that do half starch, half vegetables. Then they're the raw foodists. Usually they are, I feel like most raw foodists tend to be higher fat, but there's some people or some raw foodists that do a lot of fruit focus, so it's very high carb. If you're not able to sustain a raw food diet, you might be a raw till 4 kind of person, so somebody that eats raw until dinner time. And then there's the people that just don't touch any overt fats. That would be including things like avocado, coconut, or nuts and seeds. And then there are the people that might do juice fasts or fruit only fasts. And like I said already, potato only fasts. Typically, they're not people that are sticking to that long term, but there are people who do make full out diets from just eating only fruit. Now, so I bring all this up because some people might use any of these strategies to lose weight or at least get healthy, but they find it might be really hard to maintain these new habits or these dietary preferences. And I think a lot of the problem is we get into this mind of being perfect with it, or this perfectionist or purist mindset when it comes to any of these types of dieting. And we feel a little guilty. And I guess that's just true of any kind of diet you go on. You're going to feel guilty or like you did something wrong if you don't follow it to the T 100% of the time. And even the concept of like an 80-20, like your 80% on plan, 20% a little loose here, sometimes that can get a little too rigid for certain people too. So depends on, I'm talking about all this because some people get to the point where they're just diet exhausted, whether that's because they're just so sick of all the rules and trying to follow it, or they're simply the kind of person that's just hungry because these rules are so rigid. And it is low in calories. When you try to eat any of these high carb diets, it is lower in calories than most other diets out there as far as like calorie density. That's why it works. So if you're in that camp where you're hungry all the time and food focused, and that is all you're thinking about day in, day out, I understand what that means and how it feels. You might be the kind of person that just has to go off plan entirely and get your head in the right space, maybe just be fed for once. That would be a little bit more in the eating disorder or diet recovery side of things. A lot of suggestions would be to just finally get rid of all the rules and eat. There's a different version of it that you could do. Instead of just going off the rails and eating any kind of ultra processed food that you want, and that is a valid form of recovery, you could also have the same abundant mindset when it comes to eating anything within, the plant-based foods. So for example, when I needed a break from dieting as a whole, all I ever craved was a big bowl of oatmeal with all the fixings in it. Like I just wanted maple syrup and oats and maybe a little bit of peanut butter in there, a couple of chocolate chips and some fruit. It wasn't something that was wildly insane, but in some circles that would be described as cake. And for the food addict's mind, maybe that's reasonable to say if you are obese and you are having a hard time losing weight. But I bet an obese person honestly could lose weight on that. Anyhow, that's a little off topic. If you're the kind of person who's struggling because you're so hungry, maybe you should just relax on the rules. The reason why things like my concept of fruit first works is because I'm using it as a tool, not as a rule. Wow, that sounds funny. I don't use it every day if I don't feel like having it every day. If I feel good, like if I don't really need it, or if I'm really cold that morning, I just need a warm bowl of oatmeal. I'm gonna have that bowl of oatmeal and not feel bad about it. I think part of the problem with dieting as a whole is we all kind of assume we have to follow the rules 100% of the time. And especially in this vegan, plant-based group and world, it just has always felt that way. That's why I never could do raw till 4 very well. I couldn't follow the fruit only rule because I just felt like I could never get full on it like a real meal, and I just felt like a failure. So it just never worked for me. 50-50 plates. That's an example of something where if you're very athletic, you've got a lot of muscle, you're a man, that might not be a good idea for you, because 50-50 plates it's not a lot of calories as far as a meal goes. You might need something more substantial. The reason you might be failing is because it's not enough food for you, and that is okay to acknowledge. So understand that if you're having some issues, you need to change something up. Having a permanent dietary change means it needs to be sustainable for you. If you're one of those people who is doing the dietary change because you're doing something that has to involve disease prevention, or you have a disease and you're trying to get better, then forget what I'm saying. This is not for you. You need to follow your doctor's rules and orders. So this is for people who are maybe just trying to optimize their health or lose weight and they're struggling. If you found any success in your weight loss goals or your health goals on a whole food plant-based diet and you found some ways to make some wins, let me know in the comments what some of those strategies were. I'd love to hear it.